I pretended to leave for work but came back early. What I walked in on left me speechless. My name is Ryan Matthews, and I've been married to my wife Jessica for 9 years. 9 years of what I thought was a happy, stable marriage. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue when we were both 28, hit it off immediately, and never looked back. Jessica was everything I wanted. Smart, funny, beautiful, and ambitious. She worked as an interior designer, and I was a financial analyst at a consulting firm downtown. We bought our first house together 3 years ago. A cozy 3-bedroom in the suburbs with a nice backyard and quiet neighbors. It was supposed to be our forever home. The place where we'd raise kids someday, grow old together, build a life. But someday kept getting pushed back. First it was Jessica's career taking off. Then it was my promotion. Then it was wanting to save more money. Then it was just never the right time. Looking back now, I wonder if we were avoiding something. If we both sensed that something wasn't quite right, but neither of us wanted to admit it. The changes started about 4 months ago, subtle at first. Jessica became more particular about her appearance on regular weekdays. She'd always been put together for client meetings, but now she was doing full makeup and styling her hair even on days when she claimed she'd be working from home. She bought new workout clothes, started going to the gym at odd hours, became protective of her phone in a way she never had been before. New clients, she'd say when I asked about the extra effort. Trying to make a good impression. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Jessica had always been dedicated to her work, always professional, and her business was doing well. She'd landed several high-profile residential projects in the past year. It made sense that she'd want to look her best. But then there were the other things. Small things that individually meant nothing, but together formed a pattern I couldn't ignore. She started leaving the room to take phone calls. She'd glance at her screen. Her expression would change. Sometimes a smile, sometimes something I couldn't quite read. And she'd excuse herself. "Client," she'd mouth, walking into another room and closing the door. Our sex life changed too. It became less frequent, more mechanical when it did happen. Jessica seemed distracted, like her mind was somewhere else even when her body was with me. Afterward, she'd roll over and check her phone instead of cuddling like we used to. "Everything okay?" I asked one night after she'd been particularly distant. "Just tired," she said, not looking at me. "Big project deadline coming up." There was always a project deadline, always a client emergency, always a reason why she was distracted, distant, different. My buddy Marcus noticed it too when we all went out for dinner one Friday night. Jessica had excused herself to the restroom 3 times during the meal, each time taking her phone with her. "Is Jess okay?" Marcus asked quietly when she left the 4th time. "She seems, I don't know, off." "Just work stress," I said automatically. But even as I said it, I wondered if I was convincing him or trying to convince myself. The real wake-up call came 2 weeks ago. I'd come home early from work. My afternoon meeting had been canceled, and found Jessica in our bedroom, video calling someone on her laptop. She was laughing, that genuine, uninhibited laugh I hadn't heard in months. Her whole face was lit up, animated in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. When she heard me coming up the stairs, she quickly closed the laptop. "Hey," she said, her smile too bright, too forced. "You're home early." "Meeting got canceled," I said, trying to peer at the now dark laptop screen. "Who were you talking to?" "Oh, just a client," Jessica said smoothly, standing up and moving away from the computer. "We were going over some design concepts." "Seemed like a pretty funny design concept," I said, trying to keep my tone light. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "She's just a really fun client. Very easy to work with." Jessica had said she, but I could have sworn I'd heard a male voice coming from the laptop when I was in the hallway. Deep, definitely masculine. I didn't call her out on it. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and went to change out of my work clothes, and we never spoke about it again. But that night, lying in bed next to my wife, I couldn't sleep. Questions swirled in my mind. Was Jessica having an affair? Was I being paranoid? Should I confront her? Should I ignore it and hope I was wrong? I pulled out my phone and Googled, "Signs your spouse is cheating." The list that came up could have been written specifically about Jessica's behavior over the past few months. Increased attention to appearance check, protective of phone check, working late more often, check, emotionally distant check, less interested in sex check, takes calls in private check, changed passwords on devices, check mark, that last one hit me hard. Jessica had changed the password on her phone about a month ago. When I asked about it casually, she said her company's IT department had implemented new security requirements. It sounded plausible at the time. Now I wasn't so sure. I spent the next week in a fog, going through the motions at work, coming home and pretending everything was fine. I watched Jessica more carefully, noting every late night at the office, every private phone call, every time she smiled at her screen when she thought I wasn't looking. I felt sick. This wasn't who I was, suspicious, paranoid, spying on my own wife. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Then came yesterday morning. Tuesday, April 16th. A date I'll never forget. Jessica and I had our usual morning routine. Coffee in the kitchen, small talk about our days ahead. She was wearing a new dress I hadn't seen before, deep blue with a fitted waist. She looked beautiful. "Big client meeting today?" I asked, nodding at the dress. "Yeah," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Potential new project. Want to make a good impression." "You look great," I said, and meant it. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and grabbed her purse. "I'll probably be late tonight. The meeting might run long, and then I have some drafting to finish up." "How late?" "Maybe 8 or 9. I'll text you." I nodded, watched her leave, heard her car pull out of the driveway. Then I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my coffee, my gut churning with suspicion and dread. I had a full schedule that day, 3 client meetings, a conference call, a presentation to prepare. But I couldn't focus. All I could think about was Jessica, in that blue dress, lying to me about where she was going and who she was meeting. By 9 a.m., I'd made a decision. A terrible, relationship-destroying decision, but one I felt I had to make. I was going to find out the truth. I called my assistant and told her I was feeling sick, that I needed to work from home for the day. She didn't question it. I'd never been the type to take sick days unless absolutely necessary, so my sudden illness was believable. Then, I did something I never thought I'd do. I drove home, parked my car down the street where it wouldn't be visible from our house, and I waited. I felt ridiculous, like a character in a bad TV movie, sitting in my car with a baseball cap pulled low, watching my own house like it was a stakeout. What was I expecting to find? What was I hoping for? Part of me wanted to be wrong, wanted Jessica to be exactly where she said she was, at a client meeting, working on a new project, being the devoted professional she'd always been. I wanted to feel foolish for ever doubting her. But another part of me, the part that had been watching her change over the past 4 months, the part that had heard that male voice on her laptop, the part that had seen her smile at her phone like she used to smile at me. That part knew I was about to discover something that would change everything. At 10:47 a.m., a silver Mercedes pulled into my driveway. My heart started pounding. I didn't recognize the car. I watched as a man got out, tall, probably mid-30s, wearing expensive-looking jeans and a casual blazer. He had that effortlessly stylish look that some people just seem to have. Dark hair swept back, designer sunglasses. He walked up to my front door with the confidence of someone who'd been there before. He didn't knock, he just walked in. He had a key to my house. I sat frozen in my car, unable to process what I'd just seen. A strange man, had just let himself into my home with a key. My home. The home I shared with my wife. For several minutes, I couldn't move. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing through possibilities. Maybe he was a contractor Jessica had hired for some surprise renovation. Maybe he was a business partner. Maybe there was a perfectly innocent explanation. But people with innocent explanations don't use keys to let themselves in when they think no one's home. I waited another 10 minutes, my hands shaking. Then I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know. I needed to see what was happening in my own house. I got out of my car and walked toward my house, my legs feeling disconnected from my body. Each step felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my own body. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be my life. I put my key in the door, as quietly as possible, and slowly turned it. The door opened soundlessly. I'd just oiled the hinges last week, ironically enough. I stepped into my own home like a burglar, holding my breath, listening. Music was playing. Jazz, I thought. Something low and smooth coming from upstairs, from our bedroom. I took off my shoes so my footsteps wouldn't make noise and slowly climbed the stairs. Each step felt like an eternity. Part of me wanted to turn around, to leave, to never know what I was about to discover. But I kept climbing. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. The music was louder now, and I could hear voices. Jessica's laugh, that same genuine laugh I'd heard on her video call. A man's voice, deeper, saying something I couldn't make out. My hand shook as I pushed the door open wider, and what I saw left me absolutely speechless. Jessica was there, yes, and the man from the Mercedes was there too, but they weren't in bed. They weren't even touching. They were painting. The entire bedroom had been transformed. Drop cloths covered the floor. The furniture had been pushed to the center and draped with plastic sheets. Paint cans lined one wall, and Jessica and this man were standing side by side, rollers in hand, painting our bedroom walls a soft sage green. They were both laughing at something, completely absorbed in their work. Paint splattered on their clothes, and I noticed with an odd, detached part of my brain. On their faces, too. "I still think you should have gone with the darker shade," the man was saying. "Trust me, Mark," Jessica replied. "This is going to be perfect, once we get the accent wall done and the new furniture in." That's when she saw me. Her face went from happy and relaxed to shocked to guilty. She dropped her paint roller, and it clattered to the drop cloth. "Ryan!" she gasped. "What are you doing here?" "I live here," I said, my voice coming out strangled. "What are you doing here? You said you had a client meeting." The man, Mark, set down his roller carefully and stepped back, suddenly looking very uncomfortable. "I should go," he said quietly. "No," Jessica said firmly. "Mark, stay, please." She turned to me, her expression torn between guilt and something else I couldn't identify. "Ryan, I can explain. You're painting our bedroom," I said stupidly, "with a strange man who has a key to our house." "He's not a strange man," Jessica said. "This is Mark Chen. He's my business partner." "Your business partner," I repeated flatly. "Yes," Jessica said, wringing her hands. She had paint on her fingers, I noticed. Sage green paint. "I was going to tell you. I've been wanting to tell you for months, but I didn't know how, and then it just kept getting more complicated and—" "Tell me what?" I demanded, my voice rising. "That you're having an affair?" "What? No!" Jessica looked genuinely shocked. "God, no, Ryan. It's not like that at all." "Then what is it like?" I asked. Because from where I'm standing, my wife lied about where she was going, and I came home to find her alone with another man who has a key to our house, painting our bedroom while I'm supposed to be at work. Mark cleared his throat. "Mrs. Matthews, I really think I should leave and let you two talk." "It's Jessica," she said automatically. And yes, maybe that's best. I'm sorry, Mark. Can we reschedule? Of course, Mark said. He nodded awkwardly at me. Mr. Matthews, and quickly left, carefully navigating around the paint supplies. We listened to his footsteps on the stairs, the front door opening and closing, the sound of his Mercedes starting up and driving away. Then Jessica and I were alone in our half-painted bedroom, staring at each other across drop cloths and paint cans. "Start talking," I said. Jessica took a deep breath. "Okay, but first I need you to know that I have never, ever cheated on you. Mark is married happily with 3 kids. He's my business partner, nothing more." "Business partner in what?" "In my new company," Jessica said quietly. "I'm starting my own interior design firm. With Mark. We've been planning it for 4 months. I stared at her. "You're—" "What?" "I'm leaving the agency," Jessica said, the words coming out in a rush now. "I've been unhappy there for over a year, Ryan. My boss is impossible to work with. They undervalue my contributions, and I'm tired of making other people money while I do all the creative work." Mark left the same agency 6 months ago and started doing freelance work. We ran into each other at a design expo, started talking, and realized we had the same vision for what a design firm could be. "So you've been planning to start a business," I said slowly, "for 4 months, and you didn't tell me." "I know," Jessica said, her voice breaking. "I know I should have. But you've been so stressed about work, and I didn't want to worry you with my problems. And then when Mark and I started really planning the business, I got scared. What if you thought it was a bad idea? What if you told me to stay at my stable job? What if you didn't believe in me?" "Jessica." I know it sounds stupid now," she interrupted. "But I needed to prove it could work first. We've been meeting with potential clients, building a portfolio, setting up the legal stuff, and I wanted to surprise you. I wanted to show you that I could do this, that it wasn't just a pipe dream." "And the bedroom?" I asked, gesturing at the painted walls. Jessica gave a small, sad smile. "That's the other thing I was going to surprise you with. Our first official project, pro bono, is redesigning our own house. I wanted to show you what we could do. I've been planning this whole renovation for months. New paint colors, new furniture, complete refresh of every room. I was going to reveal it all to you once it was done, and then explain about the business." She walked over to her nightstand and pulled out a folder bursting with papers and fabric swatches. "Look, I have the whole thing planned out. Sage green walls with a cream accent wall behind the bed. New bedding in navy and gold. That mid-century modern dresser I showed you last month that you said was too expensive. Mark found it at an estate sale for 1/4 of the price. It's in storage, waiting to be delivered once the painting is done." I took the folder from her and flipped through it. Design boards, paint swatches, furniture catalogs with items circled, measurements and notes in Jessica's handwriting. "Months of planning, months of secrets. You've been lying to me," I said quietly. "For 4 months." "I know," Jessica whispered, tears starting to fall, "and I hate that I did. Every time I said I was working late and I was really meeting with Mark about the business, I felt terrible. Every time I took a call from a potential client and told you it was my boss, I felt like I was betraying you. Every secret added up until I felt like I was drowning in them." "Then why didn't you just tell me?" I asked, feeling my own eyes start to burn. "Because I was scared," Jessica said. "Scared you'd think I was being reckless. Scared you'd want me to stay in my safe, stable job. Scared you'd think I couldn't handle running my own business. And the longer I waited, the harder it got to tell you. Because then I had to admit I'd been keeping secrets." She sat down on the plastic-covered bed, her shoulders shaking with sobs. "I wanted to surprise you with something amazing. I wanted to show you this beautiful bedroom and tell you about the business and have you be proud of me. But instead, I just made you think I was having an affair. God, Ryan, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I stood there, folder in hand, trying to process everything. My wife wasn't having an affair. She was starting a business. She'd been lying, yes, but not because she was betraying me. Because she was afraid I wouldn't support her dreams. I would have supported you, I said finally. If you'd told me you wanted to start your own business, I would have supported you. Would you? Jessica looked up at me, her mascara running. Really? You're always so practical, Ryan. So focused on stability and retirement planning and making safe choices. Would you really have been okay with me leaving a steady paycheck to start a risky new business? I wanted to say yes immediately, but she had a point. I was practical. I did value stability. If Jessica had come to me 4 months ago and said she wanted to quit her job and start a business with someone I'd never met, would I have encouraged her, or would I have talked her out of it? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe I would have been scared too. Maybe I would have tried to talk you into staying at the agency. But Jessica, that should have been a conversation we had together, not something you hid from me. You're right, she said. You're absolutely right. I should have trusted you. I should have trusted us. Instead, I made this whole mess. She gestured at the paint-covered room. Some surprise, huh? Despite everything, the lies, the shock, the emotional whiplash of thinking my wife was cheating only to discover she was painting, I felt a small laugh escape. It is a nice color, I said, looking at the sage-green walls. Jessica looked at me, hopefully. You think so? Yeah, I said. It's calmer than the beige, more grown up. That's what I thought, Jessica said. And with the cream accent wall and the navy bedding, it'll feel like a hotel suite. Sophisticated but comfortable. We stood there in silence for a moment, looking at the half-painted room. Tell me about the business, I said finally. Jessica's face lit up, and she spent the next hour telling me everything. How she'd run into Mark at the design expo, how they'd started talking and realized they had the same frustrations with the corporate design world, how they wanted to create a firm that did high-quality, personalized work without the bureaucracy and client gouging of the big agencies. She showed me their business plan, their client projections, their portfolio of potential projects. She told me about the office space they'd been looking at, a small studio in the arts district, affordable but with good light. She told me about the clients they'd already lined up, people who'd worked with one or both of them before and were excited to follow them to their new firm. We're calling it Chen and Matthews Design, Jessica said. Mark wanted it to be Matthews and Chen, but I told him Chen comes first alphabetically, so that's the way it should be. When were you planning to launch? I asked. June 1st, Jessica said. 6 weeks from now. We were going to have a launch party, invite potential clients, show off our portfolio. And I was going to bring you to the party and finally tell you everything. After you'd seen the renovated house, after you'd seen that, I could actually do this. So I was going to live in a construction zone for 6 weeks and not know why. Jessica had the grace to look embarrassed. I was going to tell you we were doing some updates, that I'd gotten a deal through a designer friend. Which is technically true. Mark is giving me cost price on everything. I shook my head, but I was smiling despite myself. This is insane. You know this is insane, right? I know, Jessica said. I know it's crazy. I know I should have just told you from the beginning. But I got caught up in wanting to surprise you, and then it spiraled, and then I was in too deep to back out. The late nights at work, I said. Those were meetings with Mark about the business, meetings with potential clients, working on the business plan and financial projections. Sometimes we really were drafting design concepts, just not for my current job. And the gym? Jessica looked confused. The gym? You've been going to the gym at weird hours, or so you said. Oh, Jessica laughed. No, I really have been going to the gym. I needed to do something to work off the stress of keeping all these secrets. Plus, I figured if I was going to be my own boss, I should probably try to be healthier. No more using work as an excuse to live on coffee and takeout. And the video call I walked in on, I said. The one you said was a client, but I heard a male voice. That was Mark, Jessica admitted. We were going over the timeline for the house renovation and the business launch. I panicked when I heard you coming up the stairs because I had design boards open on my screen and I didn't want you to see them and ask questions. Everything she was saying made sense. Every lie had an explanation. Every secret had a reason. She hadn't been cheating. She'd been planning, dreaming, building something. I thought you were having an affair, I said quietly. Jessica's face crumpled. Oh, Ryan, I'm so sorry. I never meant to make you think that. If I'd known you were worried, if I'd known you were suspicious, I would have told you everything immediately. I Googled signs your spouse is cheating, I admitted. You checked every box. God, Jessica said, putting her face in her hands. I'm the worst wife ever. Not the worst, I said. Just not great at keeping secrets. She looked up at me, tears still in her eyes but a small smile on her lips. So where do we go from here? I thought about it. My wife had lied to me for 4 months. She'd kept a major life decision secret. She'd made me doubt our entire marriage. Those were serious things, things that would take time to work through. But she'd also been pursuing her dreams, trying to prove herself, wanting to surprise me with something she'd built with her own hands. And she'd done it all not because she didn't love me, but because she loved me and wanted to make me proud. First, I said, you need to tell me everything. No more secrets. About the business, about the house renovation, about anything. Full transparency from here on out. Agreed, Jessica said immediately. Full transparency, I promise. Second, I continued, I want to meet Mark properly. Not in our half-painted bedroom while I'm having a breakdown. If he's your business partner, I should know him. Of course, Jessica said. He and his wife Linda would love to have us over for dinner. Their kids are hilarious. You'll love them. Third, I said, we need to talk about the business. Really talk about it. The finances, the risks, what it means for our future. I'm not saying no, but I need to understand what we're getting into. Jessica nodded seriously. I should have done that from the beginning. I have all the numbers, all the projections. I want you to look at everything and tell me honestly what you think. And fourth, I said, walking over to where she sat on the plastic-covered bed, you need to let me help you finish painting this room, because that accent wall isn't going to paint itself. Jessica looked up at me, her eyes wide. Really? You're not leaving me? Leaving you? I sat down next to her. Jessica, you scared the hell out of me. You made me think my marriage was falling apart. You lied to me for months. And yes, we're going to need to work through that, probably with a counselor, because trust is hard to rebuild once it's broken. Her face fell. But, I continued, you also just showed me that you're brave enough to chase your dreams, that you're talented enough to start your own business, that you care enough about our home to spend months planning a renovation. You didn't betray me, Jessica. You just went about this the wrong way. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Ryan. I know, I said, pulling her close. She smelled like paint and perfume, and she was crying into my shirt, and our bedroom was half finished and covered in drop cloths. It was a disaster. I know you are. We sat like that for a long time, holding each other in the mess we'd made. Finally, Jessica pulled back and wiped her eyes. So, she said, do you really want to help paint? Because fair warning, I'm terrible at cutting in around the trim. Good thing I'm not, I said. I've been watching YouTube videos on home improvement for years, waiting for you to let me actually do some projects. Jessica laughed. You have not. I have, I insisted. I just never did anything because you always said you'd handle it through your work connections. Now I know you were just planning to surprise me with a whole new house. Not the whole house, Jessica protested. Just most of it. I shook my head, but I was smiling. Show me what still needs to be done. For the rest of the afternoon, we painted. Jessica explained her vision for each wall, why she'd chosen the sage green, how the cream accent wall would anchor the new bed she'd picked out. She showed me pictures of the furniture, the artwork she wanted to hang, the lighting fixtures she'd found at a vintage market. I wanted every room to tell a story, she explained, carefully painting around the window trim. The bedroom is supposed to be a retreat, calm, peaceful, somewhere you can escape from the world. So I went with these nature-inspired colors and natural materials. Linen bedding, wooden furniture, plants in the corners. What about the other rooms? I asked. Her eyes lit up. The living room is going to be more dramatic. Deep navy walls with brass accents and velvet furniture. Classic but modern. And the kitchen. Oh, Ryan, wait until you see what I have planned for the kitchen. Open shelving, new hardware on the cabinets, a tile backsplash I found that's this gorgeous geometric pattern. I listened to her talk, watched her hands move expressively as she described her vision, and I realized this was the happiest I'd seen her in months, maybe years. She was passionate about this in a way she'd never been about her corporate job. You're really going to be amazing at this, I said. Jessica paused mid-brushstroke and looked at me. You think so? I know so, I said. Look at this room. Look at everything you've planned. You have a gift, Jessica, and you deserve to use it the way you want to, not the way some corporate agency tells you to. She set down her brush and crossed the room to me, paint-covered hands and all, and kissed me. Thank you, she said, for understanding, for not leaving, for being willing to work through this. We're a team, I said. We should have been a team through all of this from the beginning, but we can be a team going forward. Deal, she said. That evening, after we'd finished the first coat and cleaned up the paint supplies, we ordered pizza and sat on our plastic-covered bed, eating and talking like we hadn't talked in months. Jessica told me everything. Every meeting with Mark, every client pitch, every late night working on the business plan. She showed me the financial projections, the startup costs, the expected revenue. It was risky, yes, but it was also well-planned and thoughtful. She'd done her homework. Mark's wife, Linda, is a lawyer, Jessica explained. She helped us set up the LLC and review all our contracts. And Mark's brother is an accountant who's helping with the financial side. We're not going into this blind. When were you planning to quit your job? I asked. May 15th, Jessica said. 2 weeks before launch. That gives me time to transition my current clients and get everything ready for the new firm. That's less than a month away, I pointed out. I know, Jessica said, which is why I was getting so stressed about keeping the secret. I knew I had to tell you soon, but I kept chickening out. No more chickening out, I said. From now on, big decisions we make together. Together, Jessica agreed. Over the next few weeks, we worked on the bedroom in the evenings and on weekends. We painted the accent wall cream, just as Jessica had planned. We assembled the mid-century dresser Mark had found. We hung new curtains, arranged new bedding, added plants and artwork and all the finishing touches Jessica had been collecting. I also spent time going over the business plan with Jessica and Mark. We had dinner with Mark and Linda and their 3 kids, 7-year-old twins and a 4-year-old who told me very seriously about her collection of rubber ducks. Mark was exactly as Jessica had described. Talented, professional, genuinely excited about the business. And it was clear from the way he talked about his wife and kids that he was deeply committed to his own family. I'm sorry for the confusion, Mark said when Jessica stepped away to help Linda with dessert. I should have insisted that she tell you from the beginning. I knew it was weighing on her. It's not your fault, I said. Jessica's an adult. She made her own choices. Still, Mark said, I'm glad you two are working it out. She talks about you all the time, you know. When we're working, when we're planning, she's always checking in about how things will affect you, what you'd think, whether you'd like something. You're her whole world." That made me feel better than I expected it to. Jessica quit her job on May 15th, just as she'd planned. Her boss was surprised, but not shocked. Apparently, several other designers had left recently, and the writing was on the wall about the agency's management problems. He actually asked if I'd be willing to contract back to them for some projects, Jessica told me that night. I said I'd think about it. "And?" I asked. "And I think I will," she said. "On my terms, at my rates, doing the work I want to do. That's the whole point of this, right? Freedom to choose." Chen and Matthews' design launched on June 1st, exactly as planned. The launch party was at their new studio space, a sun-filled loft in the arts district with exposed brick and massive windows. Jessica had designed the space herself naturally, and it was stunning. I watched her work the room, talking to potential clients, showing off their portfolio, laughing and networking with an ease I'd rarely seen from her at her corporate job. This was where she was meant to be. "She's good at this," Linda said, appearing next to me with a glass of wine. "Mark, too. They're going to kill it." "I think you're right," I said, and they did. Within the first month, Chen and Matthews had signed 5 new clients. Within 3 months, they were fully booked and starting a waiting list. Jessica was working hard, long hours, lots of weekend site visits. But she was happy in a way I'd never seen her. Our house became their showcase property. As Jessica completed each room, she photographed it professionally and added it to their portfolio. The sage green bedroom with its cream accent wall and mid-century furniture. The navy living room with brass accents and velvet sofa. The kitchen with open shelving and geometric tile. "People love the house," Jessica told me 6 months after launch. 3 of our clients hired us specifically because they saw pictures of what we did here and wanted something similar. "So I'm living in a display home," I teased. "You're living in a dream I built for us," Jessica corrected. "Every room I designed for you, for us, for the life I want us to have." We did end up going to couples counseling, as I'd suggested. We needed to work through the trust issues, the months of lies, the fact that Jessica had made a major life decision without including me. It wasn't easy. Some sessions were hard, with both of us crying or angry or frustrated. But we worked through it. We learned to communicate better. Jessica learned to trust me with her dreams and fears. I learned to be more open to risk and change. We both learned that a strong marriage isn't about never making mistakes. It's about facing them together. Looking back now, a year later, I can barely remember what our bedroom looked like before. The sage green walls and cream accent have become so familiar, so much a part of our home, that I can't imagine it any other way. I also can't imagine our life without Chen and Matthew's design. Jessica is fulfilled in a way she never was at her corporate job. She works hard, yes, but she loves it, and Mark has become a good friend, along with Linda and their kids. We have dinner together once a month, and the kids love our house because Jessica designed a guest room specifically to be kid-friendly with a reading nook and toy storage. "I have a confession," Jessica said one evening as we were getting ready for bed in our sage green sanctuary. My stomach dropped. "What?" She laughed at my expression. "Nothing bad. I promise, no more secrets. I'm glad you came home early that day. I'm glad you caught me." "You are?" "Yes," she said, "because I don't think I could have kept the secret much longer. And this way, you got to be part of the renovation, part of the business launch, part of all of it. It was better to build it together than to just hand you something finished." I thought about that day, the terror I'd felt watching a strange man enter my house. The nauseating certainty that my marriage was over. The shock of discovering Jessica and Mark painting instead of whatever I'd feared I'd find. "You know what the weirdest part was?" I said. "When I opened that bedroom door and saw you painting, I think my first thought was, that's not the color we chose. Jessica laughed. We never chose a color. The walls were that boring builder beige from when we moved in. Exactly, I said. But my brain was so overwhelmed that it latched onto this completely irrelevant detail. Wrong color. This is wrong. We didn't choose sage green. Do you like it now? Jessica asked. The sage green. I looked around our bedroom, the calm, peaceful retreat she'd created, the space that told a story of new beginnings and second chances. I love it, I said. It's perfect. And it was. Not because of the color of the walls or the style of the furniture, but because it represented something bigger. It represented Jessica's dreams made real. It represented us working together instead of keeping secrets. It represented a marriage that had survived doubt and emerged stronger. The first year after Chen and Matthews launched was a whirlwind. Jessica threw herself into the business with an energy I'd never seen. Some nights, she'd come home at midnight, exhausted but exhilarated, telling me about the estate they'd been hired to redesign or the corporate office that wanted a complete overhaul. We got the Riverside Hotel project, she announced one evening, bursting through the door with takeout Thai food and a bottle of champagne. 23 rooms, the entire lobby and the restaurant. It's our biggest contract yet. That's amazing, I said, pulling her into a hug. I'm so proud of you. Mark and I have been pitching them for 2 months, she said, already pulling out her laptop to show me the design boards. Look, we're doing each floor with a different theme. The second floor is Pacific Northwest, inspired with lots of wood and greenery. The third floor is more industrial chic with exposed elements, and the fourth floor is going full luxury with jewel tones and velvet. I looked at her designs, the careful attention to detail, the way she'd thought through every element. You're really good at this, you know that. I'm learning, Jessica said. Every project teaches me something new. Last week we had a client who wanted her entire house to be shades of white, which sounds boring, right? But the challenge of making it interesting, of playing with textures and tones and layers, it was actually fascinating. This was the Jessica I'd fallen in love with, passionate, creative, fully alive, and it made me realize how much she'd been holding back at her old job, how much of herself she'd been suppressing. But success came with its own challenges. Jessica's hours were longer than ever. She was traveling more for client consultations and site visits. Sometimes she'd be gone for 2 or 3 days at a time, working on projects in other cities. I miss you, I said one Sunday morning when we actually had time to have breakfast together. It feels like we barely see each other anymore. Jessica's face fell. I know. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to build this business, and there's so much to do, and I'm not complaining, I interrupted. I'm just saying I miss you. Maybe we could plan a vacation, a real one where we both turn off our phones and just be together. She smiled. I'd like that. Let me check the project calendar, see when we have a lighter week. 2 months later, we went to Hawaii. Just us, a beach house, and 7 days of no work, no clients, no business calls. We swam in the ocean, read books on the lanai, made love like newlyweds, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. Thank you for supporting this, Jessica said one evening as we watched the sunset. The business, I mean. I know it's been a lot. The long hours, the travel, the stress. But I couldn't do it without you. You could, I said. But I'm glad you don't have to. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Do you ever regret that day? Coming home early, finding me with Mark, all of it. Never, I said honestly. Yeah, it was terrifying in the moment, but it forced us to be honest with each other in a way we hadn't been in a long time. Maybe we needed that shake-up.